Hi, welcome to CPC TV. We are here again with an absolutely new episode. This time we are going to talk about finance and economy in Canada and across globe. Actually focusing more on Canada. The reason being is that we are really in a very difficult situation right now. With this pandemic going forward, the situation is day by day deteriorating. Health-wise, we are very, very concerned about how we are going to take care of ourselves. Apart from that, how we are going to bring food to our table. This is the biggest challenge right now we are facing. Last decade was focused on real estate. And let me give you some data on real estate, which makes, the last decade real estate has given us more than half of our annual GDP growth. It represents the 3/4 of national wealth as of today. The realtor fee and transfer fee has cost around 1.8% of our GDP. These are Statistics Canada's detail. If the mortgages are not being paid, it becomes very difficult for people to see how they are going to survive. I can tell you some more thoughts as to how I think probably we can think about moving forward with this situation. What will be downturn? How we are going to take care of ourselves? And the biggest challenge right now is what we can do so that we can come out from this situation. In my opinion, what I think is, and we are going to talk to one of our experts who is going to be in panel today. I think SME is one of the biggest bread earner for people. There are roughly 1.2 million SMEs in Canada, which employs roughly 3.6 million people right now. The total employable working class is 15.8 million Canadian. And the focus of Canada should be to take care of how we can make sure that these SMEs are being empowered. And right now, we need to see how these Canadian technologies can be nurtured to move forward from now onwards. It's a crucial time for sure for everybody. It is a crucial time. And we need to see how best we can do as an individual and as a family, as a community, as a country, as a whole, all together, how we can move forward. And I see a very bright future which is going to come, because I know that whenever there is a challenge, there are choices which we have. And the choices is whether we are going to move forward in a new direction or whether we are going to go back and go to the same cycle of past. So the choices are there. How we are going to move forward is what we have to see right now. In looking into this situation and bringing the people out here, I have today my panelist, which is Moe Zulfiqar. He is a renowned person on reading the economies. He does one of the very good thing is 5 things I watched today, which is very popular on his 1 million 1 million subscriber for his post in social media. So I would like to call him today to our show. He's very knowledgeable in terms of how we can see and what his thoughts about in terms of economy and how we are going to take over from there. So please welcome Mr. Moe Zulfiqar. Welcome to CPC TV. First and foremost thing, where we are right now.
Anurag, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to CPC TV. It's an honor to be here with you and just talk about the economy, and it's really an honor. Before I go into any details, I just want to clarify a little bit of things. All the analysis, in my opinion, and the data that I'm going to talk about is from government sources. So individuals who want to fact check, they can go to government websites and check there. Let's talk a little bit about unemployment first. Or let me track back a little bit, and let me say that right now conditions look bad in Canada. If you look at unemployment, for example, In month of March, we lost 1 million jobs. Over the past 4 years, that was the job growth. We lost all of those jobs in a matter of 1 month. But that's not all. Malls are closed, manufacturing plants are closed. Everything you think about is closed other than a couple of, the industries are operating at very minimal level. Businesses are closing because they're having a lot of trouble figuring out things. And it's an interesting times for us, but let's go beyond that. What's happening with this pandemic is people are actually losing their confidence. Yesterday, for example, we had some data come out about consumer confidence. It made some historic lows. And that's something to think about. When consumers are not happy, they're not really, they're not optimistic. They don't go out and shop. They don't go out and buy things. They're not going to go out and buy cars. They're not going to go buy furniture, iPod, or whatever you have. So that's where we are at the moment. I personally think we're borderline recession. Recession is inevitable right now. Depression-like scenarios are building up, but we'll know with time what is actually happening. But there's one more thing when it comes to Canada, and not many people are actually talking about it right now. Canadian West is filled with oil, and oil prices have collapsed because there were demand issues, supply issues, and all of that. It's all in the news. Oil prices have collapsed, and a major portion of Canadian West deals with oil. You have to think of it that way too. What's going to happen there when this all ends? So they're not only dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, they're also dealing with oil price collapse. So right now, as I said before, things are bad. They don't look that great, and anyone you talk to, they all say it's very hard to, just sit. It's very difficult.
So next is so many stimulus plan government has come up with. What do you think about it?
So Bank of Canada came out, they lowered the interest rate. Bank of Canada is also doing quantitative easing. They're making sure that banks have liquidity, and they're making sure that, lending doesn't stop. But and let's talk about the Canadian government as well. They came out and they said we're going to pay $2,000 a month to individuals who are affected by the pandemic. They're increasing child tax benefit. From provincial levels, there is a lot more stimulus going in as well. But we don't know how effective that's going to be. Will $2,000 be enough for a family that has a mortgage of $8,000 a month? I'm just throwing numbers. I'm not really, these are just examples. But at the same time, you also have to consider what happens to a barber who hasn't opened their shop for, it's been over a month now. When they open their shop, will they pay their rent? And what happens with the landlord? Will the landlord pay off their mortgages? And that's where, the issues boil down and snowball effect comes.
The worst thing is the banks are only deferring the principal. What about the interest?
This is one of the, I've been talking to a couple of my friends, and they deferred their mortgages, and it turns out they actually have to pay interest later when the mortgage is due. So is it really helping them, or is it not helping them?
So I tried myself with one of the government bank, trying to find out if there is any possibility of deferring. The reason why I am asking this question is, it's not that we are losing business. It's a pandemic.
Right.
Okay. There is a difference between losing business, which may be down 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%.
Right.
We are starting from scratch. It's zero, right? There is no business at all. I personally, I can tell you this, and then you will say that you have a building which has a mortgage for 30 years and 4 million or 4.5 million. The interest itself is $20,000 a month.
And that's one of the questions that I personally don't think anyone is asking. The kind of snowball effects we're going to see down the road. Yeah, you can not pay mortgage or rent for a month, we will not pay for 6 months. Because we, at this point, given the data we have or what we know, even Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came out today and he said, it's not going to be, you can't just turn on the switch and go back to normal. So it's going to be a while before we go back to normal.
And think about it, 10 years, the decade which we lived for the last 10 years, the economy was focused only on real estate.
Right.
And then there are a lot of people who can't even afford a mortgage.
Right.
What to do now?
And that this is going to be the question. It's like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine recently, and we were talking about pandemic was just a catalyst that could create a lot more problems in coming months and years. And we're going to find out eventually when the dust clears, everything will be, we'll know what actually happened.
Yeah. Thinking about now, the oil sector was doing not good. Why there was no policy in terms of finding some substitute kind of support for West? There should have been kind of things where we can think about getting those countries, part of province, to be doing something different.
That is a great question, and when it comes to policies, I'm scared that I'm not really well versed in that. But what I notice is what ended up happening in my opinion. What ended up happening in the West was there was a lot of political scene that just created out of nowhere, and instead of talking solutions, or instead of let's sit on the table and let's talk about it, what ended up happening was we just had name calling, and we had and it just went to
absolutely
places.
no
So
doubt
that's what
about
I
it.
think.
Yeah. What about the small and medium enterprises, SMEs? There are 1.8 million small and medium. Roughly, they employ 13.6 million people. Yes, 40,000 they have announced as a loan, which has a bracket of from 50,000 as a payroll for 2019 to $1 million.
Right.
What about after million?
And this
so I mean, some things which I don't understand of these stimulus is who is getting benefited and what is the numbers?
Right, and again, like I said, is $40,000 enough for a business that has $1 million revenue? Is it enough for them?
Yeah.
How long is it going to last them?
Yeah.
That's the question, right? Will it last them? Yeah, I get the government is trying to do, and over time we'll know the real number. We don't have the real numbers right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
and also the other thing is that this EI also had some impact on our economy because people are off the job. In my opinion, the government should have focused on SMEs to support and survive those so that they can make sure the employment is been there rather than giving them EI and off the job. I mean, personally is one thing which I...
Right. So the government of Canada, they came out with a subsidy. If you have, I believe it's 75% of the salary that the government will take care of, and 25% the business has to take care of. But
that has also not yet out.
I know, and
still,
it's not out. So again, what ends up happening now is we're in the midst of crisis, where things are promised or things are happening, but how effective are they? We'll find out.
Let's see. Very, very, very tough time for sure. I know that. I mean, it's very easy to say, and then So I now want to focus on the positive side. What we are going to do now, from now to next month, next couple of months, and what's your thoughts on that?
Okay. So first of all, the first question that we need to ask is how long will it take for things to go back to normal? Will it be 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? And one thing that has become very clear over the past few weeks is that the lockdowns are not going to go away in a blink of an eye. It will be gradual, I don't know how to say it, but it will be gradual. Like, you know, you go
to normal.
Go to normal. So it's not going to happen right away. So now you have to see what's going to open first and what's going to open last, and that's when you decide, you know, where the opportunity is going to come or what's going to happen.
And the other thing is it good to rely on China now? That's another question.
I think one thing that has become very clear, again, in my opinion, that the world thought that China was the factory of the world, and you could manufacture in China and bring it back to whatever your country was. Now, I think with all the supply chain issues that are happening, and you know the costs have gone through the roof. It's just I think we're going to see a lot of brains getting together and talking about, hey, let's bring manufacturing here, or let's make sure that we're not reliant on a country like China or even any other country. It's just all about like
any other country.
Let's figure out how we can, in Canada, for example, we can figure out how can we build certain things that we need, and in times like that it happens again, we are able to secure it within our country.
Like definitely PPE, those kind of personal protection equipments should have been the country's important prerogative in terms of making sure.
I again, before this, I would have assumed as a you know I'd like to say I have some common sense. I would assume that the country like Canada or the US, they had their own. They made sure that they had emergency supplies and ventilators and things that we're running into issues with. And I'm kind of shocked personally. I am very shocked that they are running out of these, and we're having to come to solutions that nobody really thought of. So it is interesting times.
So let me ask you the last and final question.
Sounds good.
What do you think after a year where we land?
Okay, so assuming we are ending the lockdown a month from now, that's what Ontario government, they moved their lockdown a month from now. Assuming we are slowly, gradually going back to normal, I think 1 year outlook looks good. In the next 6 to 8 months, we're going to have a very rough time. That's the reality, and the data says that that's going to happen. We're going to have a recession. We're going to see a lot more interesting things come into economy, and a lot of interesting things show up when it comes to business or investing and whatnot. But 1 year out, I am very hopeful or optimistic that we will get back to somewhat normal. Business will be back to normal, and will be. And let me also say this, that few years from now, all of this is going to go into textbooks. And what I read in textbooks about the crash of 1987, the Great Depression, we're going to talk about the pandemic of 2019 and 2020. That's going to happen.
Thanks, Mr. Moe Zulfiqar. It was really wonderful listening to you. Your thoughts were very concise, and definitely we have a good outlook of Canadian economy in the next couple of months. It will start showing the sign of recovery, and we hope that it is going to be a very, very wonderful once it passes this pandemic very smoothly. So next 1 year, as you said, that it is going to be very good, and I hope so that we are going to see better results after this 1 year passes by. So just to give you some more information, please make sure that you are safe at home, you are wearing mask, you are making sure that you are doing a social distancing as all the governments are enforcing in terms of making sure that we all are safe. Please follow strictly whatever has been told by the government. Make sure that we are all safe. And especially I would like to request that we must take care of elders of our house and plus of the community, because we are part of that, and we want to make sure that those who are there in the community as elders, we need to take care of them. They have all they need in this difficult situation, difficult time as well. So thank you so much joining us today with Moe Zulfiqar, one of our panelists, and we hope to see you again with a very new episode next time. I want to bring somebody from a provincial or federal government in the next program to see how they are doing and what all are their stimulus packages, how they want to see the economy to survive and how they want to see the economy to grow. So these all are our thoughts, and with these thoughts, I want to take your leave. Please make sure to like us and to subscribe us on social media, because these are the time when you will get our updates whenever we post it. It's one of the very good program which we have done this today, and we want to make somebody who is more grow on this field. So please feel free to have any kind of suggestion. We will definitely would like to appreciate your thoughts and processes which is going forward with this channel CPC TV. Thank you so much. Have a nice